Well, hello everyone. This is Fadi, and I want to welcome you to a very special video today, an interview with our dear brother, Dr. Jay Smith. Today's video focuses on our upcoming second annual online conference. Last year, we had this conference towards the beginning of November. This year, it's going to be basically, conducted in the middle of October between October 14th and October 16th. Now, our conference typically has at least 3 tracks, and this year is no exception. We are going to have track number 1. This time will be on Thursday, October 14th. It focuses more on discipleship and also evangelism towards Arab students. And in particular, the focus is on the Arabian Peninsula students and Saudis and Gulf Arabs. And we are going to have amazing speakers in this particular track. Some of them are former Muslims from Saudi Arabia. And we will address issues related to challenges to discipling new believers and some of the, downfalls, if you wish, that the ministries and the church faces sometimes when they help bring someone from that background to Christ, but yet at the same time, there is a lack of focus on relationships and on helping them grow in their walk with Christ. So we are going to focus on these kind of issues for track number 1. Track number 2 is the one that is even more exciting, has to do with polemics and apologetics to Muslims. And we're going to have the likes of Dr. Jay Smith, who is with us here, and he's going to highlight his topic. But the focus is going to be on, obviously, the many obstacles and objections and, apologetic barriers that are raised sometimes by Muslims, or in this case, discoveries that are being made that are damaging to the history of Islam, the foundations of Islam, the Quran, and other things related to the traditional narrative of Islam. And we are going to help our attendees and those who will be registering for it, the conference, to learn how to navigate through these amazing, exciting discoveries, but how they can use it also in their approach and outreach to Muslims in a delicate way that can open the door for discussions and hopefully even bring Muslims to Christ. And then finally, on Saturday, October 16th, we will have our 3rd track, which I consider to be kind of like an independent track. It focuses on end-time prophecies, but still we want to talk about the role of the church in the end times in reaching possibly Arabs or Muslims according to certain prophecies. In other words, is Islam mentioned in any of these prophecies? Are the Arab people mentioned in there? What are we to do, especially as we feel like we're approaching the end of time based on the signs and the recent developments and so on and so forth? We do not want to abandon basically the post. The Lord told us to reach out to all nations, and then the end will come. So we're going to focus on the role of the church. We're going to focus on failures, maybe. We are going to talk about is Islam in end-time prophecies? What are other things that we can see from the scriptures that will pinpoint to us, the place of Arabs and the place of Islam in terms of church outreach? So this is the overview of the conference, and we will do many of these promos with the other speakers as well. But today, we would like to highlight the topic that our dear brother, Dr. Jay Smith, is going to talk about. Dr. Smith, thank you so much, as always, for being an amazing, partner in ministry. And thank you for your research, for the wonderful things that you've been uncovering for us lately, the team that you work with, the amazing scholars and researchers. And most importantly, I can say that you're becoming more and more the world authority on, historical criticism of Islam, if you wish, the origins of Islam and the foundations of Islam, and the basically the challenge and the tension between the traditional narrative and these new discoveries. So with that in mind, would you kindly give us a quick overview of what you will be addressing in a conference as it relates to this?
Thanks, Al-Fadi, for having me on board. And it's fascinating because the conference itself comes right over the period when I'm going to be in California teaching this very material that entire week. I'll be teaching it every evening and also all day on Saturday. So it's fascinating that you've asked me to come and speak about this specific problem. And it is a real problem for Islam. I think it's really the Achilles heel of Islam. And that is what are Muslims going to do when everything they know about the book, the man, and the place? The book would be the Quran, the man would be Muhammad, and the place would be Mecca. Those three things, everything they know about those three things, which in a sense is what makes up Islam. Without any one of those three, Islam falls. Everything they know about those three are coming from the 9th and 10th century. Nothing at all comes from the 7th century, when the book, the man, and the place should have been in existence. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the book of the man and the place, those three areas, and I'm going to show you all the newest research that we have come up with. Now, Al-Fadi, you and I have been doing this. We've been working through this. We've been, for goodness sakes, how many different episodes have we done through the last, especially 2 years, where you and I have gone and unpacked Mecca, we've unpacked the Quran, we've unpacked the Qibla, we've unpacked the coins, we've unpacked also the inscriptions. These are the areas that Muslims don't know what to do, because we're looking at evidence from the 7th century, not from the 9th and 10th century. We're looking from the 7th and a bit into the 8th century, because that is when Islam was created. That's when Muhammad supposedly lived. That's when the Quran was supposedly revealed. And so we're going to show that from the evidence on the ground, not from the the standard Islamic narrative, the SIN, that all Muslims are dependent on, and so far the much of the world is dependent on. What we're going to say is, as a historian, you always go back to the center you're talking about, and you see what is there, and you just look at it. Don't interpret it from the standard Islamic narrative. Throw away the standard Islamic narrative. Don't anything to do with them, and look and see what you have in your hand, and then describe it. And we're just going to describe it, and you're going to see. Not only are we finding out who this supposed Muhammad was, because there was quite a few Muhammads in the 7th century, not just one, but all the Muhammads we know lived much further north, and they lived in what is today Iraq, Syria, and Jordan, those three countries, and they were very much in history, and they called themselves Muhammad, especially one. But he was not a Muslim. He did not come from Mecca. He came from Hira, which is today Kufa in Iraq. And he did take over Jerusalem, and he did conquer it. And he did build something on where the Dome of the Rock is. He did build a structure, a Kaaba, a cube. He put it up there, and he did that in 637, and then he died in 644. But fascinating, he received no Quran. However, we are now finding out that he did receive a book, or pieces of a book, what we call a proto-Quran. And it's this material that was then introduced in the 7th century, which then was then taken by people like Muawiyah later on, and then Abdul Malik after him, and Abdul Malik, who then comes back to the very same place and builds the Dome of the Rock. And we're going to unpack that and show you what we're now finding. And it's going to be fascinating, because everything that I'm going to be sharing in your conference there on the 15th, which is a Friday, everything I'll be sharing you, I will be supporting with evidence on the ground. Not speculation, not a narrative that comes from 200 to 300 years later, but from the very century it existed. The book, the man, and the place. We've had this question thrown at Christianity, at Jesus, at the history, his history. Now we're asking the very same questions concerning Muhammad, his revelation, and his city.
Thank you so much. And just one quick question I want to ask, just as a teaser. How can people benefit from this? Do you perceive that the right approach is to learn how to destroy Islam and that's it? Or to use it to bring Muslims to Christ, but in a delicate way, obviously?
Yeah, and this is probably the best way to do it. I remember I've been working with Muslims and in evangelism, and certainly in what we call apologetics and polemics for now, going on almost 40 years. And I used to do what most people do, and that is to confront Muhammad and his sexual proclivities and his violence and yada yada, you name it. I did it, and I just got tired of that. It just made me feel dirty, and it is as close as you can get to what people term as hate speech or Islamophobia. It was in 1995 that I came across the historical material studying under Dr. Gerald Hawting there in the University of London, and that's when suddenly the penny dropped for me and said, wait a minute, why are we wasting time on this man named Muhammad in the 9th and 10th century, this man named Muhammad who had all these sexual difficulties, all these problems, who was so irrelevant for the 21st century or for any century? Why am I wasting time confronting him when we need to find out if he even existed? Did he even exist? Did his book even exist in the 7th century? It did exist by the 8th century, but did his city even exist? This is much, much easier to use. And I'll tell you why, Al-Fadi. Anybody can use this. Everything that we're going to share, everything that we're finding, you can be a humanist, you can be an atheist, you can be a Christian, you can be a Muslim, and you need to ask this question, but you need to use it because it is visual. It is coins and inscriptions and documents and manuscripts and buildings. You don't even have to know Arabic to understand what we're going to introduce and share with you. And the terrific thing about it is that when Muslims are confronted with this material, whereas back in 1995 when I did my first debate with Dr. Jamal Badawi on this kind of subject, on did Islam exist, at that point his response to me was, you're just arguing from silence, and the absence of evidence does not prove the evidence of absence. He was correct in 1995. Now we've turned the tables because now we have the evidence. So now every time a Muslim argues for Muhammad or for Mecca or Medina or the 4 first caliphs or even the Quran or coming down, or people called Muslims or religion called Islam in the 7th century, they have to now argue from evidence. And if they cannot show us any evidence for those 5 things, the book, the man, the place, and the people, and also the religion, then they are arguing from silence now. And I would suggest that any Muslim who can only quote those traditions better start showing us evidence, because after a while, we're just going to stop listening. And we're going to say, stop wasting our time with all this silence, because they're arguing from silence. We're no longer arguing from silence. It makes our job a lot easier. It makes it all the more difficult for Muslims to ever claim that there was a man named Muhammad who did live in a city called Mecca, who did create or did receive a book called the Quran and create a religion or a faith called Islam. And then from him came the term Muslim. That we can pretty much shut down just by asking the simple questions such as, prove it. Now, for so many people who are listening, this is what people want, because these are perfectly good questions to ask. They're as neutral as you can get. There's no hate in anything I've said. There's nothing Islamophobic in this kind of material. These are questions concerning textual criticism, redacted criticism, source criticism, historical criticism. You can't get more neutral than that. And that's why we're trying to make it as easy as possible, because anybody can ask these questions. And Muslims, if you can't find answers to these, you're going to have to come up with 1,400 years of history. But I'm not asking for the 9th century to the modern day. That is historical. We pretty much know that is material that you can support. I'm asking for the 7th and 8th century. That's all I'm asking for, those first 2 centuries of Islam. Where in the world is your evidence for it? And please don't waste our time with your traditions. I don't want to hear Al-Bukhari or Sahih Muslim or Ibn Dar or Tirmidhi. Don't waste my time with Ibn Hisham or Al-Waqidi. Please don't waste my time with Al-Tabari. I don't need those anymore, because those are too late and too far north. Bring me something from the 7th century. So can you see how easy this is, Al-Fadi? It just makes it so easy for you. It makes it easy for me. And it makes it easy for your students, the people coming to the conference. Because what they're going to find now is this is material that anybody can use. You don't have to get sullied. You don't have to be worried about being hateful or being Islamophobic. You can pretty much just ask simple questions. The same questions should be asked of any faith, any religion, any group, or any ism that claims to have historical context. And every religion does talk about history. They are all talking about men who live in history or women who live in history who do certain things at certain times and in certain places. That's all we're going to talk about. And in one fell swoop, We demand of Islam what we've already demanded of Christianity. These questions have all been asked of Jesus, about the Bible, about Jerusalem, and every one of them have been answered. If we can answer this for Jesus and his gospel, then Islam now needs to answer it for Muhammad and his Quran. You can see this is a win-win for us because we already had this test. We've been working on it and have been throwing at this stuff at us for 150 years. And none of us said this is Islamophobic or this is hate speech. We've accepted it and said, listen, these are valid questions. But we got out and started scratching in the ground. And the more we scratched, the more we found. The more we are, as I say, the more you scratch, the more you find. The more you find, the more we shine. The more we shine, the more they whine all sublime. That's exactly what we've been doing the last 100 years. Now we're taking those same questions and asking them of Islam. That's what we're going to introduce in your conference. That's what you and I have been working with, haven't we, Al-Fadi, for really the last 2 years.
Absolutely.
And, that's why I'm so glad you're doing conferences like this, so we can get it out onto the internet so that everybody can hear it all over the world, certainly. And once you give the times and the dates, please do shine up, do come, do learn, and then engage with Muslims using this new material.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. J. And I have to admit, a couple of years ago, I was still a doubter about these kind of theses, if you wish. And now I am a believer that there is a lot of evidence that point north. A lot of things are coming from north. Or in some cases, even south, like if we want to include Yemen. But the bottom line, nothing from Mecca, nothing from Medina, nothing substantial, if you wish. Yeah, we know that we have a traditional story, but you can have stories all day long if you cannot back it up with archaeological evidence, manuscript evidence, other discoveries, other writings, extra sources. It's going to be a problem for you to defend your narrative because the Christianity, the Bible, the story of Christ, the crucifixion, all of those have been tested and tried in many ways, and yet we are comfortable because we have enough evidence from within and from without to support it.
There you go.
Thank you so much for doing that, everyone. Thank you. Of course, this is, as we mentioned, a promo video for this upcoming conference. The day that Dr. J. Smith will be teaching will be October 15th. The conference is 3 days, October 14th, October 15th, and October 16th. If you want to know more about this, we have provided you already with the link. You can see the link on the screen right now, CIRAinternational.com/2021-conference. We also put it in a chat box, but also go to the description under this video and you will find the link. Once you click on it, it will give you instruction on how to register. You can register for one track at the time, or you can register for 2 tracks together, or you can register for 3 tracks all together. So it's up to you. You have the freedom to choose however you want to register for this conference. Again, Dr. J, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you. And thank you, everyone. This is Al Fadi over and out. God bless you. Take care.
Bye-bye.